Paul Dwyer, or Mr. Paul C Dwyer, should I say?
It depends on who you want to talk
It
to.
depends on. I think I'm going to go Paul Dwyer. Yeah. Thank you very much, man. Welcome to the studio, number one. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks a million. It's a pleasure to be here.
I was laughing there, saying to you, we just had a conversation for the last hour. It was not the conversation I thought I was going to have here. So when I was looking you up and I was going through your kind of credentials, it was the acronyms that got me. The number of acronyms behind your name was where I had to kind of stop and go, look, I'll just ask Paul, would you mind explaining to people who you are and what you do? Because if I do it, I'll absolutely butcher it.
Okay, so the reason we're joking there about the Paul C Dwyer piece is because that's pretty much what I'm known as in the industry as Paul C Dwyer. Everyone asks me what the C is for. I'll say cyber. I've been called other things beginning with C over the years. But look, I'm a cybersecurity advisor, right? And I've worked in this space of cybersecurity for over 30 years. And these days, everybody is kind of familiar with the term cybersecurity, but don't really know what it means. It's as much about laws and regulations as it is about people hacking through systems and so on. The credentials and all these letters, I mean, when you start off in your career, you're trying to prove yourself to people. So you collect this alphabet after your name of all these things to prove that you are able to do what you say you can do. And then a certain part of your career, that's not so important anymore because your reputation carries you through to the next piece. But also you have to be able to perform all of the time and have that ability to be able to prove I'm not just, a story or something about something that we've done years ago or something like that. You got to do this every single day. And I'm 30 years into this and you still have to be fresh.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, man. I absolutely love that because it applies to so many different areas of life. You are, I'm going to say the word expert. You're an expert in the area of cybersecurity, but also author, entrepreneur, business owner, many, many other things, advisor. Would you mind giving me a bit of a breakdown on the landscape? Because what we're going to try and do today is give people an idea of what cybersecurity is, because most of us think it's the password on our iPhone, and that's pretty much as far as it goes. And what the landscape looks like, what kind of stuff is out there, what kind of stuff you deal with, and then we'll just let the conversation roll off from there.
Cool. So look, cybersecurity is in many ways about that password in your iPhone. It kind of starts there, right? With being able to protect something, right? So the word security itself means free from risk. Okay, the word cyber means internet-based, computer-based, whatever. Now, how can we use the internet? How can we use computers and be free from risk? You can't. So it's a kind of an oxymoron. It's kind of a paradox, right? So I talk about cyber risk because risk you can manage because you acknowledge there's a risk there. So there's a risk to us being able to send information over our heads here and wireless networks and everything else like that. Do I know what the risks are? Am I managing them? That's what it's really about. Security came from the decades ago when the terminology would be used to, say, build fortress of walls and layer defenses and so on like that to stop people getting in. In other words, almost saying it's impossible or that the tactic or objective here is to stop someone stealing your data or being able to break into your systems. The reality today is it's accepted people will break in.
Okay.
But will you know they have? And will you be able to respond and will you be able to recover? So to talk about the landscape a little bit, and you've alluded to there that people think about, cyber criminals and things like that. Cyber criminals are motivated to make money. They're business people, they're entrepreneurs. The people at the top of the OCG groups, the organized criminal groups in the cyber world, often are technical hacker type people. They're the kind of people who organize very well. They can pull together project teams, and they'll often use people who are vulnerable. So we see lots of people who have Asperger's syndrome or on the spectrum who are actually manipulated and used by these criminal groups to carry out criminal activities.
Oh, no way.
Now that brings you into another group. So you can think of this like a Venn diagram. Okay, so that's one circle in the Venn diagram. Now the other group we get into thrill seekers. These are the ones that do it for the crack. We often call them sometimes script kiddies and things like that. They're in the bedroom. It's an extension of online game playing. Breaking the rules, finding another way through this, using a code, all that kind of stuff. Hacking's a bit like that as well. The adrenaline rush, the dopamine, all of that, right? You get hooked into it. If you're one of those kids that took things apart and put them back together because you want to know how they work, brilliant brains, absolutely fantastic. But criminals look at that and go, I could use you to do this, I could use you to do that. And they use that. So you have that group. Then you have other groups like nation states or state actors. So you'd have the likes of Putin. He would run military groups like the GRU, Unit 7744 or 74455 for a lot of stuff that's going on at the moment. And those types of groups are military groups that are used to carry out cyber criminal behavior directly against nations like Ireland. So, but he would have this gray area where he would work with groups like, say, the Conti ransomware group. Now, the Conti ransomware group is the group that took down the HSE during COVID. They have about 60 odd staff. They do about 160 million a year, and they're organized like a tech company.
It's funny to hear you describe it like that. Like,
That's literally what they are. They go to work every day. They go into the office. They work remotely. They have staff nights out. They have motivations. They have all of these kind of things. They run exactly like a company you'd expect in the likes of Silicon Valley. Then you've got groups like in the PLA, the People's Liberation Army in China, Unit 61398. Those guys will be against a lot of the time. They're looking for intellectual property to steal from the likes of America or anyone who in pharmaceuticals, any areas where there's a lot of research and development going on. Why spend billions on research when you can just steal it?
fair, yeah.
So and it gives it a huge economic advantage. So now what we're doing is we've got these circles all overlapping each other. So your adversary, the person you're worried about, is somewhere in the middle. And there's another group I often refer to as cyber scum, right? And they're people who are bad actors. They're predators. They're working in this space, but they're not after money. They're not after stealing information or intellectual property, whatever. They're after their prey, and their prey is often children and so on. So all of these people work within this ecosystem. Now, when the media tends to spotlight criminals, because the reality is data is the new cash. If I broke into your office here and I stole something, I stole a laptop, what would I get? Maybe 200-300 quid for a laptop on a black market. But if I break into your laptop from the other side of the world and I steal all your data, that's worth a lot more to me.
And a lot less risk.
And a lot less risk. And the chances of getting caught are pretty much nil because there's not going to be CCTV, see me hacking into your system and all those kind of things.
Yeah.
And that is pretty much the difference in the model. So if I am a criminal in the real world, so to speak, I have to physically get access to the asset. I could be seen taking that asset. You'll notice it's gone because your laptop's gone. And then there can be investigations, what we call attribution, because if there is evidence or someone's witnessed me doing this and so on, you'll be able to maybe get an investigation and Garda Síochána, whoever it is, bring me up to the courts and I face attribution. And you may have transferred the risk. You may have your laptop insured. Now, if I steal your data, I can steal it, I can sell it many, many times, and the risk is virtually nil. And the chances of being caught, even if you realized I'd copied your data, you mightn't even know I've taken it because you still have it.
Yeah.
But I've got a copy of it. And the fresher that, it's like a market, the fresher the data that's stolen, the more expensive it is. And it's sold on these underground markets on the dark web. And within those, people are often fascinated when they see these markets about the different pricing schemes and the different bonuses and how trust systems work and escrow and so on between these parties who've never met each other. Who from all over the world will say, well, I need someone to create a phishing email. I need someone to launder the money. I need someone to run the crypto through Tumblr. We've never met each other, but we all work through this market. And we all buy and sell our services through those. And the guy in the middle that runs the market, he's taking a little slice off everything.
Sounds like I'm in the wrong business, to be honest with
Well,
you.
it's a $6 trillion economy, and we're estimating that will go to at least $10 trillion in the next
Did I
few
hear you
years.
say it's the number one criminal?
Yeah, it's gone beyond drug trafficking as the number one crime.
Wow.
Right, because it's so lucrative.
Yeah.
It's so lucrative and it's so low risk. And that's why you have the organized criminal cartels, the mafias and so on, all involved in this area. And the Russian mafia and the triads and all that, they're all involved in this area because it's so lucrative. Even as a way just to move assets and things like that and set up scams. So it's not just a guy in his bedroom being a scam artist and stealing some credit cards and buying things online and then selling them off on done deal adverts or something like that. Yeah. It's a low level kind of, crap basically. This is highly sophisticated, highly organized. And it's not victimless. It's not victimless. Like, the people genuinely get not just physically hurt, but emotionally destroyed. I mean, if you look at things even like, for example, romance scams. So part of an overall scam to maybe attack a bank, part of that scam might be a romance scam. So a romance scam is that it might take 6 months to make somebody fall in love with them online, right? So they create a fake persona, they build up a relationship, and then they get something on them. Right?
Someone who works in the bank.
Someone who works in the bank.
Yeah.
Maybe a video, maybe a chat log, something else like that. They've got some background on them, have leverage.
Yeah.
Right, and then they will extort them. So now we're going from a romance scam where maybe they just want to pay that money to sextortion.
Yeah.
Sextortion. Now I'm levering this to actually make you do something. Saying, so you work in the bank. I want the password for this. I want you to tell me what day that delivery goes out there or what happens.
Yeah, it's like a more sophisticated version of a tiger kidnapping.
Yeah, absolutely.
The risk. Yeah.
Absolutely. And look, technology plays a part in everything. And that's part of the challenge for law enforcement because it's under-resourced in every country when it comes to this. And if you think of what crime doesn't have a cyber element to it, it's very hard to go, well, that's economic crime, or well, that's cyber crime. That's a murder and that's a rape. But in the murder and rape, there was also a laptop used or there was a mobile phone used. And so we only have a certain amount of cyber forensic experts. Are they working on someone who lost, their life savings on a scam, a cryptocurrency scam, or are we going to use those guys to work on doing the forensics around trying to track some guy who's murdered or raped somebody or whatever it happens to be? So there's a huge deficit of skills in the cyber world of all different levels, those skills. There's 6 million open jobs at the moment.
Open jobs?
Open jobs that can't be filled. 6 million open jobs around the world.
And these jobs are aimed at prevention of these crimes?
Prevention, detection, response, recovery. They could be from the legal aspect. They could be from procurement. They could be from the more technical end of things. There's millions and millions and millions of open cybersecurity jobs. And some of those, to give your audience an understanding of some of these things, for example, what we would call a CISO, a Chief Information Security Officer, tends to be what would seen as kind of the highest level of what you're going to get. So if you're in charge of information security and cyber and all that in a bank, $1 million a year is the salary.
Jesus Christ.
Right. So it's insane because the market drives that. Now that's in different markets, different areas, different sectors, and it's about your background. People would argue and say, oh, well, it's only 200 grand a year in Ireland. That's the market. That's dictating whatever.
Yeah.
Go over to Canary Wharf on a flight for an hour and you'll find that you get $1 million a year, or go to the States and get double that. So it's on average what we're seeing around the market. And it's that driver. I've done a lot of work in the area of diversity in the industry because we see that less than approximately, say, 10% of the industry is made up of women. Right. So I've trained over 10,000 women over the last year for free. Right. And we set up a whole online academy to do that and bring them all through from all over the world because it was basically an old white man's game up until that. So, and we're doing our best to challenge that and change that. And dare I say, a lot of the skills that, and I have to be so careful how you even phrase anything these days.
Say whatever you want on this podcast.
But what women would have lend themselves to certain areas of cybersecurity, cyber risk better than men who may have a different way of thinking about problems where holistically, and I can say this as somebody who's become qualified through Harvard as a teacher of cybersecurity and everything else like that, and I can see that the female students, when it comes to the holistic nature of taking into account all the various aspects, do a better job than men who will tend to work on more of an engineer's straight line,
black and white
logic to something. And also men tend to be, I'm not anti-men, right? But men tend to be just more bravado, more full of shit, more machismo to what their abilities are.
Yeah.
Where that cautious approach that tends to be taken a lot of the time, women in the space lends itself better to the art of risk management, as opposed to the gung-ho bullshit of attack them, hit them, defend them, and all that crap. Subtlety is very, very important in being really good at cyber risk and cyber security in those aspects. It's not about being macho and it's not about hitting back to this. It's about being strategic, playing the long game a lot of the times.
Yeah.
I mean, people often say that to me when we look at attacks and say, oh my God, someone's on my network, get them off my network, get them on my network, blah, blah, blah. And you go, no, we have to find out where they were first.
Yeah.
Where did they go? What did they do? What did they plant? Did they plant digital grenades? Have they put a load of child abuse imagery on your network? And now if I kick them off, that will go off. The last stage that a hacker does when he hacks into your network is he protects you.
He protects you?
Protects you.
Okay.
Because she's invested time and energy and resources into owning you, into owning your network. The last thing they want is another bad guy to come along and walk into your network. So they protect you from that. And so they set up these kind of alarm systems, if you like, and they're watching, they're monitoring. And they're monitoring for the other bad guys, but they're also monitoring for the good guys. And if a good guy comes along and goes boom and presses a button to say, oh, we're knocking them off the network, they will throw the digital grenades over their shoulder, cause the chaos, and run for the hills.
Disappear in the smoke.
Yeah. And that kind of stuff could be, they would dump maybe a list of all your usernames and passwords up on Pastebin website, right? And they make that public. And all of a sudden now, you're fighting fires on 20,000 fronts, or 10,000 fronts, depending on how many customers you have. And you're working on those fronts. I go, why are my details up there? Why are my medical records up there? Why is this up there? Why is that up there? On public, and you're dealing with all of that. They're gone for the hills.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, man. This is why I wanted to explain it like that. For most people, in my experience, don't understand the scale of where this is. Like, if it's becoming the number one crime in the world, if there's that much money involved. You mentioned there about the subtlety of all of this, because it used to be a lot of brute force stuff, didn't it?
Yeah,
Just hammer, and you could kind of build stronger defenses. But now it's subtlety and it's intricacy. The conversation that I hear most about data and protection and personal security is, sure, I've nothing to hide. And I think that's part of the naivety that's allowing this to get so big, because most people still, I don't know, you're the expert, but in my experience, don't see this as a massive issue, because I don't click the phishing emails. I can spot them a mile away, but it's way more complex than that.
It's way more complex. So let me unwrap that a little bit. So, but the nothing to hide thing, because we all have something to hide. We all have a human right under the Human Rights Act to privacy. Privacy is so important, right? So there's a jail in Mexico, I think it is, where what they have is a central tower, right, in the middle, and they have one guard in that central tower, and all around the ring of that are all the prison cells or whatever, right? But they only need one guy, because no one knows when they're being watched, because he's in the center.
Okay.
So we behave differently when we know we're being monitored as human beings.
Yeah.
Right? Now, people are selfish by nature, so they only care what something about themselves. So I remember in preparation for interviewing Snowden, one of the things I saw was this interview where people were going and saying, would you care if there was a surveillance program running and monitoring people for counterterrorism and blah, 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 and that it meant that everybody could see all your emails and everything else like that, but it was for counterterrorism and it was going to stop another 9/11 and blah, blah, blah. Everybody goes, oh, no problem at all. No worries with that at all, whatever. Same question in a different way. Do you care if someone sees your dick pics? All right. Everybody goes, we'll see my dick pics. Oh, no. It's the same question.
It's the same thing.
Right? Privacy is privacy.
Yeah.
Right? And for whatever reason, images and all that, and whatever it is, privacy, I'm using that as the example, but that's the reality. And we sell ourselves when we use services for free. If something's free on the internet, you're the product, exactly. You're the product. End of story. And when you see even the average pricing that Google makes out of each person that uses their search engine, and why are these so vastly wealthy companies that can ignore privacy laws? You see what Facebook and Meta are doing and all that kind of stuff. And then you see the morality that's involved with some of those companies. The massacre in Myanmar and how Facebook was part of all of that and things like that. These people can control the narrative. They can tell you the earth is flat. We've given them that power.
Yeah.
If Cromwell was invading Ireland tomorrow, he'd be using Facebook.
In fact, he would. Yeah.
To get the message out there and all that kind of stuff, because you can control a political narrative. You can control anything by controlling the information. And we see this with fake news. I mean, this guy Progovny that's in the news all the time now because of Putin and what was going on there. One of the things that he established was a thing called the Trolls of Olgino. And he set up an academy to train 300 trolls on how to troll people, right? How to turn it into a science. And they developed a curriculum and they skilled these people, because these were becoming mercenaries and these were becoming part of the modern day army. Can you control the news? And they were the people that were used in the 2016 elections, that were used against Hillary Clinton and everything else like that, because they can convince you fucking anything.
Yeah.
Anything. You doubt yourself.
It's just like the Cambridge Analytica stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, same concept. So Cambridge Analytica is that leak, or the news that came out that these guys were able to use all of this information to see, they'd use confirmation bias to be able to present you information a certain way. And when you look at someone who's so split down the middle, like the United States of America, and you get your Republicans and your Democrats, whatever, and all of a sudden you start pumping out a message, they're coming for your guns, they're coming for your bullets, all that kind of crap. And they go, did you hear that? They're coming for... Everyone's saying the same thing. No one gets a chance to hear the other side of the story. You're just getting confirmation bias the whole time. And when you take that on board, you even look at what's going on in the media in Ireland and stuff like that, you just go, this, you can see it.
Yeah.
It's so important to have the truth out there as well.
Yeah, and that's a very difficult word nowadays. I remember just on your story there, about 8 years ago when I worked in the clinic, a client came in, a young guy, he was only 22, he was a software developer, and he came in and he was all excited, he's working on this new project. And when he explained the project to me, my blood actually ran cold, because he said to me, it's new software that we're testing that can gauge the emotional state of an area. So Swords, Dublin, Ireland, whatever, Leinster, whatever, you pick the area and it can gauge the emotional state. And he's like, it gives me feedback on are the people happy, are they sad, are they consuming content? He says, and then we can change the flow of information to these people to change it. So if everyone's angry, we can show them pictures of cats and ice creams and make them all happier. And I was like, this sounds really dangerous to me because this kid's 22, doesn't know. He's just happy. He's making stuff. He's making a few quid. But that kind of tool, if he knows about it and he's telling me that's the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, it's psyops, right? It's controlling populations to their mood control and everything.
Nuts.
The things that sells for why Facebook is so successful is anger sells and controversy sells, and that's why they stoke that fire all the time.
Yeah,
and that's why the algorithm stokes it all the time because they want people to be outraged and everything else like that. And now, if you take a step back from any of the updates, even I'll just use American politics as an example. If you take a step back from some of the messaging you've been coming off the Republicans there, and you look at something, you just go, how is anyone believing any of this? But they're getting it by degrees all of the time.
ratchet strap.
Yeah.
Click, click,
Exactly.
click. Yeah.
That's it. And it's like, Pizzagate, and they're running paedophile rings underneath pizza stores all over the place. And all this, Hillary eats humans, and the earth is flat, and all this kind of stuff. Like, it's absolutely bizarre. But bit by bit, if every time you picked up, I mean, one of the things that controlling democracy through those kind of platforms, and you've been able to. So if you're like an African dictator and you want to control the population, and you can go to Facebook and say, give out all these free tablets to everybody, and it's great because now they can sell their fish online, they can do this, they can do that. Well, that's all brilliant, okay. But now we control everything they hear. So this is the voice of God, right, in their hand. This phone they have. If they tells them it's going to rain, it's going to rain. If they tell them, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, and they tell them that everybody with ginger hair is evil, then that's what they believe, right? Because this is their only source of information. Now, that's a big black and white example of a true case of those kind of things. Not the ginger people piece, but all the rest is. But that's how it actually works. Like, and so in extremes like that, and that's where Cambridge Analytica came in as well. Because if you had enough money, you could get access to it, you get access to the people, and you could control the messaging that goes out there. Like, it's wild. Like, what do you think of it? And we have to cop ourselves on and check ourselves to what we're believing.
Yeah.
And when the latest thing is happening, say all this stuff's in the news at the moment about Tubridy and so on like that, you can't get caught up in the emotion of these things, right? You stand back and look at the logic of it. And on balance, always try and look at things on balance and say, well, where's the balance in this? There's a motivation for people to put out stories. I mean, like, do you remember there was a big change on people's phones when all of a sudden everything was a weather warning?
Yeah.
And how much Brennan's bread did they sell? Right? Because everything's clickbait. It's the end of the world. There's another storm. There's this, that, and the other, whatever. It's the same tactics as used in marketing. And I used to tell a story about this that was going back to probably about 15 years ago. Start telling the story about this guy goes into, I think it was a Target store in America. And in America, they're big on their coupons, and they collect all their coupons for this, that, and the other. But what people don't realize is that when they send those into their homes, they're targeted. So they might know that you're into fitness training. They might know that you like Budweiser beer. They might on a Friday you might get a few beers, and you might do some DIY over the weekend. So the ads that you're getting are completely different in the printed copy of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So this father anyway comes in outraged, and he goes, "Why are you encouraging my daughter to get pregnant? Right, with all the stuff you're saying about babies and all this." She was pregnant and she didn't even know, but her buying habits had changed. That triggered the algorithm, so she was being presented with different kinds of products.
People think this stuff, right, is conspiracy, but
no, it's the reality.
A mate of mine, I made one worked in a big supermarket chain, and they have a loyalty card, same thing.
Yeah.
They know your buying habits, know what changes. Another friend of mine worked in Google 15 years ago. She showed me a client's profile. The granular detail. Yeah. We know that Mary gets paid every second Thursday. She likes red dresses, but when it goes to the summer, she likes blue dresses.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is 15 years ago, and I was like, what the fuck is going
on?
I know, yeah.
It's crazy shit. I mean, and that's the thing that we don't take the time to analyze ourselves that much, but when there's massive banks of computers analyzing massive amount of data about you, it's frightening. I mean, if you put a subject access request into any social media provider you've been using, you'd be blown away with the information they're keeping.
They know you better than you know yourself. Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
I'm dragging you slightly off topic here. We'll get back on cyber in a second now, but why? Why do you think this is? Is it money? Is it power, control, all of the above? Depends. Why Why are we being influenced like this?
I think it's the final answer is all of the above, but I think it starts off sometimes when people have technology. Wouldn't it be cool if you could do this? Wouldn't it be cool if you could do that?
Yeah.
I like to think that that's where some of this innovation is exciting.
Yeah,
Right.
like Mark Zuckerberg to what Facebook is now.
Yeah. And this, the story of him is a little bit blurred because of did he steal it? Did he not steal? All that kind of crack, right? But the when people are innovators and the creators, they love to push boundaries and love to create new things and cool things, right? And they do that, but they don't necessarily think about the consequences of those things, like AI and all that kind of stuff, right? And if you look at some of these big successful companies in this space, the people who they got their call of conscience after they made their hundreds of millions of dollars, but they won't let their children use the technology. So there's a thing called the ludic loop where it comes from the old slot machines. You pull it down, you hear the noise, spinning things, and there's a little bit of release in your brain, and you go, oh, that's nice, whatever. That's the same process. Is why we get a little updates on the thing because anybody looking for me, has that number changed? A little red box and blah blah blah. All that kind of stuff. It's the same psychological thing. We are what we are. They know how we operate as human beings, and they're tricking us into lifting the phone 1,000 times a day and doing those things. So then there's an opportunity for that evil side of nature to pull in and go, what could you do with that?
Okay, here we go.
Yeah. What could you do with that? Like, could you control a population? Could you make more money? Where does it end? Like, because it's up to whatever then your objective is. And I think there's a certain amount of money people get, and it's not about the money obviously anymore.
Yeah.
If you're settling a divorce for 35 billion, you've enough money, right, Mr. Bezos, right?
Yeah, go on,
like move on, like do whatever you're going to do, and then it just becomes about power and influence and all of that kind of stuff. I think is what boils into it at the end of the day, and it's that frailty within people's human nature, which is related to ego. Like, there's Trump, right? All the money, all the blah blah. His life is miserable because it's related back to him wanting to be the center of attention, right? So, and that's about him perceive the power he has and all of those kind of things or whatever, right? Should he not be just playing golf?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I've visited his hotels around the world, whatever he wants to do, whatever. But it's not that. So, like, something drives people beyond that level then that they go, no, I'm going to do it for this reason or that reason, whatever. And it can be very, very dark reasons because human nature is dark.
Yeah. So would it be fair to say then that rather than this just entity, this evil entity that wants to control and kill everybody and keep everybody suppressed, it's just that dark side, the shadow side of human nature is given the opportunity, the tools to express itself more, to, like, as you said, go a little bit more every single time, to experiment, and it facilitates that. So it's not that necessarily anybody's out to get me or get my data or get anything. It's just I am the victim of this movement, of this ego that's trying to grow with a company or a government or an individual who's in power. I'm just a collateral damage, I suppose, to that.
Yeah, that's probably a really good way of summarizing it, because, I mean, it's about opportunism in many ways. Like, me and you could look at a certain situation, we both just wouldn't see the evil opportunity in it. Yeah. But if someone has an evil intent or has that dark side of them, they go, but you know what else you could do with that?
Yeah. Which is in all of us.
Yeah. But it's that piece. Well, parts of it are in all of us. We all may have what we consider a dark side, where it's nowhere near as dark as some of the people I've come across in my life. But and it's that piece that you might never, ever expect. People say we're all a reflection of each other. You can only recognize something in somebody if it's in you. Okay? Fair enough, right? So you might not see that dark, evil, twisted objective that somebody might use something for. I'll give you a quick example. I've done a lot of work around basically capturing pedophiles and things like that. And I remember in the early days of apps, we was working with a mobile telephone company as a client in the United States, and we saw this app and it was getting lots of traffic, and it was and people were actually inventing things just for the crack, like, and just going, oh, isn't it cool? And it's become very popular, and maybe we could turn this into a business model, whatever. And this app basically was for kids, and it would say, like, what's your favorite soccer team? What's your favorite band? What's your favorite color? You know, all that kind of crack, right? They're taking all this information, and then that's all great. What was actually going on with that app was they were selling access in the back end to pedophiles, and you could go in on a drop-down list and say, Caucasian, 5 to 7 years old, in this area, show me where they are. Now, what that is, right, now the predator is a step ahead, because the predator creates a profile and goes, hi, my name is Jack. I'm into this soccer team. My favorite color is this. My favorite program is this, blah, blah, blah. The whole lot. And is always halfway down the grooming path. Also, that app is in the child's bedroom, right? So it has a geolocation of where the child is at all times. Everything else goes on the app. So so me and you would look at that and go, why would anybody have that reason to have an app like that, whatever? That's what I mean by the darkness. If the darkness is there, they'll find an evil opportunity in the technology. And that's why it is about baking in safeguards and baking in controls and having the right laws and regulations to make sure things are done properly. Look at AI today. I mean, everyone's going, "Oh, ChatGPT, isn't it great? You can do this, you can do that, do the other." I've been talking about AI now for years because we need a cyber morality around what AI is going to do. And where's the morality going to come from in relation to these kind of things? You can go in and retrain your staff on how they handle data or how they handle customers and everything else like that. How do you retrain your bots? How do you retrain your AI algorithms if they're machine learning and they're developing things on their own? And
is this an alignment issue, this AI alignment?
Yeah, because if they're staff, are they staff?
Yeah.
Right? What are they? Right? So there's all of that, like, which I know is a whole other topic we could talk about. But there's yeah, I mean, look, the dark side of criminality, last thing I ever want is anybody to be afraid of innovation, afraid of technology, anything else like that. It's taking a risk-based approach. If you listen to this and you have a child, you wouldn't hand the child the scissors and say, go and do some arts and crafts.
You teach them how to use it.
Teach them how to use it.
Yeah.
Right? Here's how you're going to be safe. Here's how you hold the scissors. Here's what you do. Blah, blah, blah. You don't run with the scissors,
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff, right? It's the same principles.
Okay.
And you don't want to be have children on an island, secluded from all other information sources because you won't give them a tablet or you won't give them a thing, whatever. It's just about control and managing it and all of that. And then it's the whole way up as we go, because the easier we make things to use, the less secure they are.
Okay.
Golden rule, right? So as we then develop our businesses and we're relying on cloud-based stuff and we're relying on applications for this, that, and the other, whatever, you're more dependent. Because that dependence comes from the word trust. Right, and the more you trust something or someone, the more vulnerable you are to it.
Your guards are down.
Yeah, your guards are down. The ultimate trust is love, right? That's literally how it goes when we talk about that. And what the holy grail is about creating any technology business is about establishing digital trust. Who'll trust you online? Who'll trust your brand? Who'll take out their credit card and use it and everything else like that? How do you provide assurance? How do you provide confidence? How do you make it good, right? And that's what part of that challenge around cybersecurity and cyber risk management is actually making people feel safe to deal with you. Will you respect their data? What will happen when the data is breached? Because things will happen.
Yeah, and it's almost an inevitability.
It's an inevitability. So it's, the FBI are famous as saying, look, there's two types of companies, those that have been hacked and those that don't know they've been hacked, So there's all of that part of it. And it's so it's an interesting time to exist in the world of technology. Because this is all now going so fast. The cybersecurity industry itself is growing so fast and so vast. Like it's hard to get your head around it sometimes, that it's going right down into everything. You think of the Internet of Things at home.
Your fridge is talking to your toaster.
Yeah,
it's talking to your phone.
Exactly. Like, why are you afraid of your treadmill is going to hack you? Right? Because it probably is. Right? It's probably the weak point in your network at home, and they'll come in through the treadmill, and then they're on your network, and then you're on your laptop, and boom.
So can I ask you, before we go to risk management, because I know we're a little bit tight on time here, before we go to risk management, just a little more on the landscape there. How far ahead are the bad guys, is the evil, compared to, because we've 6 million open jobs there, we don't have the staff, there's not enough people focusing on this problem, and the other people have 160 million euro companies, and that their job every single day is to hack us, to focus on this stuff. How far ahead of us are they? Is it a cat and mouse kind of a game?
It's completely cat and mouse, and the criminals go where people go, and they also go to the easiest opportunity. So what this is about is, if you had a small business and you're protecting it in some way, 20% of the effort will get you 80% of the protection. Okay. So the real basic cyber hygiene stuff, patching, complicated passwords, use 2FA, use anti-malware, all those kind of things. Those basic controls will stop 80% of what could get you. Think of it in terms of home security. Someone walks down, your front door's open, your window's open, whatever. you're the target.
Yeah.
Right? If they try the door and it's locked, they'll move on to the next one and they'll try the one that's not unlocked or whatever. It's just easy pickings for them. And they automate an awful lot of this. So it's automated. They're just going after the low-hanging fruit all the time.
No. Easy go.
Easy go for it.
Yeah.
And then they're going through and they'll follow through. There's different levels of complexity, different levels of targets, different objectives to all of these cyber threat actors. Some of them, as I say, are politically motivated. Some of them are about ideology. We did a lot of stuff around ISIS and stuff like that, and they want to convince people of something, or they want to create terror and all of that good stuff. And there's lots of different motivations. But criminals, well-funded, well-organized, agile companies, and when they have nation-state protection, such as those that operate out of Russia, it's very hard to deal with them. Like, it really is, because you're not able to use the normal things like cooperation between law enforcement. It's just not as effective anymore. And then when you're in times of warfare, there's a grey area between what's cyber warfare and what's cyber criminality. You used an interesting phrase there about collateral damage and so on. Most cyber insurance policies will not cover people now if something is deemed an act of cyber warfare.
Wow, because you're not the target.
You're not the target. You're collateral damage.
Fuck.
Right? Yeah, it's mad. Like, so these are the times that we live in. And in most people's day-to-day jobs, they hear these terms, or they see it on a TV program and they think it's all far-fetched. It's not. It's literally, we call a lot of these threats APTs, advanced persistent threats. And an APT is essentially a person or a group of people that have decided they'll use advanced and persistent techniques to compromise you. Now, a criminal will want to return on their investment. So they'll put in X amount of effort, spend X amount to because they want to return.
Yeah.
An APT threat actor, they've got a different game, right? They will take as long and do as many things. And that might be real physical world stuff. That might be they'll try and seduce you. That might be in the physical world. They might try and break in, steal something from your car. All of those things, as well as, because what their goal is to get control and to compromise you in some way. Part of that would be advanced malware. When we talk about advanced malware, a term shared with your audience is crimeware. So crimeware is software that has been created to carry out crime. So you don't need to be a technical, long-haired, pizza-eating guy in a toga sitting there hacking in through systems anymore. You simply go on and you buy the software to do a DDoS attack. You buy the software, or you rent it, crime as a service.
Oh, very
right?
nice.
And you just rent the things. And if you're doing, say, for example, ransomware as a service, you do a split with the guy who's created the software, and it's all built into the code, and he gets his commission and you get yours and all that kind of stuff or whatever. That's why it's proliferating the way it has. And then you have things like insurance companies coming into the middle of this and going, oh, we'll just pay the ransoms. We're not going to pay for all the damage after the ransom. We'll just pay the ransom. Great. So now ransoms have gone from 10 grand up to over $1 million, right? On all of these things. You're just creating a problem here. No one's thinking this out. But, from an individual's perspective, I talk about a techno community response to all of this. We all have responsibility. So let's say, for example, tomorrow your bank account is hacked, right? And you go, AIB, bank phone, whatever. And you start blaming them. But you didn't have the updates on your phone. You used a free Wi-Fi, right? You were on dodgy sites. Not that you would. Right? You were on dodgy sites, whatever.
You know what I mean, man.
Yeah. I read you. I have your browser history here. So that's the thing, right? We all have to part to play with this. You can't just go, well, they were hacked, because maybe they weren't hacked. Maybe your system or the mobile phone provider on the way in. But if we all, it's a bit like the COVID thing. If we all wash our hands, we're all safer.
Yeah.
If we all do cyber hygiene, we're all safer.
Okay.
If we all have better passwords, we're all safer. Make it harder for these guys. If we all update our systems and patch and everything else, we're doing much better for everybody. Because you're just making it harder for these guys. And these guys are evil. This isn't like the cool, glamorous Hollywood stuff and you see the guy going around the Ferrari as a hacker and he's giving it to the man and he's beat the system and all that kind of crap. These same guys who do this are involved in human trafficking. They're involved in torturing animals online. They're involved in selling human organs. They're involved in all sorts of deep, dark shit, right? And, they provide bulletproof hosting services to people who are running child abuse networks online, charging for people to go in and see kids murdering kids online. This isn't fantasy shit. This is the reality. Guys like Peter Scully and so on in Australia, who his journey went from being a criminal, a cyber criminal, into getting girls to rape each other online, live on camera, and then bury each other like dead, murdered, And then
Christ.
he sees nothing wrong with this when he's questioned and says, well, you have your own daughter. Do you not see something wrong with this? He says, no, I feel I was just kind of a victim of this. I just went from cyber criminality to seeing that I could charge people $50,000 to watch this stuff. Like, unreal.
Holy shit, man.
Right. But that's evil. You see, and one of my motivators in my career has been, there was a turning point. I remember I was working in a large insurance company in London, and I got approached and said, listen, I saw something dodgy here, and would you mind investigating this? And I'm like, look. And I started using the skills to investigate what was going on. What I found was there was this website that had been developed to target kids who were doing the equivalent of their internet search, right? And had all the topics up and everything else like that. But it was kind of a doorway page, and we went to a doorway page, and all of a sudden, it was a pedophile site, right? And I hadn't seen anything as detailed as this before. And I was going, this is insane. And so I started working with the relevant authorities, and we got these guys or whatever. And then the next one after that was, I was becoming very desensitized and using terms like pre-verbal, right? And I go, like if someone said it to me a year before that, you're protecting pre-verbal, what's that? Pre-verbal is essentially you're protecting children that can't speak, so under 2 years of age, who were being abused. Now, I'm not saying this to shock your audience, but just a little dose of reality. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm at a 5 here on how dark this shit can get.
I can only imagine, yeah.
So, and pre-verbal, and then seeing grown men with a pre-verbal baby, and that's stuff. Your motivation's there, and catching these fuckers. Yeah. Right? We're going to stop this shit, right? And that's only a part of the darkness that's out there, right? Because the inhumanity is just unreal, right? And whatever you care about, whether it's animals or humans or whatever it is that you care about, and when you see that darkness in play, it's the fucking devil. Like, I mean, I use pictures of the devil in presentations to explain to people, I'm going to talk about something really darker, and I'm going to explain to you, because if I don't show you the reality of this, you won't get it. Like, so if you're working in a bank and your job is to protect usernames and passwords, and you're not motivated because you go, yeah, sure. If they steal it, should we just pay them back the money?
Yeah, insurance.
But what you're actually doing is you're stopping these guys. They're all part of the one ecosystem. They all work together. Like criminals work with pedophiles, work with terrorists, they all work in the same ecosystem. So you're damaging them, and you're restraining them and thwarting all of their efforts and all of their objectives to do that if you're protecting your data. So every time you patch your phone, you're stopping that shit. Every time you use a long, complicated password to put 2FA on, you're stopping that shit, right? Because if we make it so easy for them, that's why they're so successful at it. You know, and people often say about the dark web and the deep web and all that, you know, what is this all about? Well, you know, this is one of these things. The dark web, the deep web is essentially everything that's not indexed through Google or through Bing, okay? So the surface internet that most people would they call the internet is just what Google decides you're allowed to see and in what order.
Yeah.
That's not the internet.
Yeah.
Right? So everything else is essentially what we refer to as the deep web. Now, part of that is the dark web. And the United States Navy had teams of what they call analysts. Analysts are essentially spies, right? And they would be analyzing other entities all over the world to see what they're up to, what they're talking about on their websites, all that kind of stuff, and feeding it back in through the United States Navy and yada, yada, yada. But they realized very quickly that these entities, such as Al-Qaeda and so on, realized these IP addresses, that's the United States Navy, let's block them out, let's, you know, prevent them from going onto our websites and things. So the really clever guys of the United States Navy created a thing called Tor, the onion router. And this was like one of those old-fashioned TV programs where you're trying to trace a phone call and if they're bouncing the signal, guys, we don't know where the call's coming in from. That's essentially what Tor does, right? But it was an invisibility cloak, and it meant that nobody knew where you were coming from, okay? And all you have to do is load this up, this piece of software. So the Navy said, it's not using a standard internet protocol, so they'll still know it's us. I know. We'll give it to them for everybody for free. So they gave it out to the world for free, and all the bad guys rubbed their hands and said, you've just given us an invisibility cloak. So 80% of the traffic became child abuse, imagery, criminality, everything else like that. And that's why Tor is used, and the dark web, essentially, all of these services were starting to come from because they have this protection, layer of protection.
Is it like VPN kind of thing?
It's like a VPN, more advanced from that insofar as that the VPN will give you like just a fake IP address. Yeah. This is going to obscure where you're coming from totally, and it's going to encrypt everything that's going down the line, essentially, what's going on. So they would use that piece. So that's where these marketplaces are. That's why, you know, people may have heard of things like Silk Road. Silk Road was a community website about getting people good drugs, right? And I mean that in the right way. As regards like, you buy bad drugs and you get poisoned, or do you go to a community of other drug users around the world?
And,
yeah, and it's verified. And you say that there was fair trade cocaine being sold on it, right? They would have cinnamon nights once a week, all this kind of stuff that you could go on and you build a part of the community. Or you'd say, I'm thinking of getting into this. What would you recommend? How do I start off? And all of that 5-star feedback and customer care was why they turned $1 billion in their first year. $1 billion.
$1 billion.
$1 billion in their first year.
Wow.
Right. And the powers that be can have things like that happening. And that's why you see like the fall of guys who were involved in that, and how all of a sudden the FBI will go after people and they'll target them, whether it's, movies online or whatever it happens to be, that they if they're affecting an industry and taxpayer money and those that have the power to influence what's going on in Congress in the United States, then
they've kind of learned from that as well, though, haven't they? Because from our perspective as users, we're giving up a lot of our own security and privacy for that convenience. So they're kind of using it with us as well. Here's a lovely, convenient, community-based way of doing all these things, social media and all this. But you have to give us your information, obviously, and you have to unlock all your privacy settings, obviously. Because it's how we help you better. We can give you a better service.
You've no choice.
You've no choice. Now you've no choice.
Yeah, effectively you've no choice. There's if you hire a car in California, right? On the wing mirror of that car, it will tell you that they have this law in California, which I just think is a real mad example of this. And it will say to you, there's things in this car that will give you cancer. If you drive the car, you're accepting that risk. Right? And it says it on the wing mirror of every car you hire in California. They have the sign printed on the way into Disneyland in Florida. They have the same act, in California. They have the same act printed out and saying, if you come in here, there are things in here that will kill you. Like as in chemicals and stuff like that. They're on the rides and everything else like that. And they're approved to give you cancer.
Get out of jail free card, though, is it?
That's basically what it is. It's almost making the whole thing laughable because you have no choice. It's not really a decision you're taking then, because you're going, well, I want to go to Disney, but there's this obscure chance that I might get something, or I might die, or I might get some chemical rubbed off of me that will cause some issue. What is the risk on a scale of 1 to 10? Nobody knows.
Yeah, and it's the pictures in the cigarette packs as well.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And so it's kind of a bullshit choice for people to make. Like the terms of service stuff is a real funny one, because people used to put in funny things in that terms of service, like you'll give me your firstborn and you'll give me your kidney.
Did you see the South Park episode, didn't it?
Yeah, I heard about it.
The human centipede pad is fucking brilliant. Man.
It's unreal, because that's the shit. No, who reads that shit?
Nobody.
Right? Like you just click.
147 pages of terms and conditions.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Have my firstborn. Yeah, go
on.
I just want the MacBook.
Whatever it is. I mean, with the first, actually, that had a funny story on that. Back in 1989, it was in the AIDS epidemic, and people were fucking freaked out about AIDS and all that kind of stuff. And it was a time of 5 1/4 floppy disks, right, for exchanging information, all that kind of crack. And there was a disc went out about AIDS, and you could get information about it and everything else like that, and learn how to safeguard yourself. All that kind of bullshit was meant to be all on this thing. And but in the terms and conditions, it said that this software, if you install it, is going to lock your machine down, and you're going to have to pay a ransom to get back into your machine. Effectively what it said. Right? First piece of ransomware I ever dealt with ever, right? Now, did I read the terms? No, right? Did it infect one machines? Absolutely, right? And then we had to reverse engineer it and find out the way around it and everything else like that. That guy was having people in 1989 sending postal orders to pay the ransom payment to his house, like, right? Just while I was the first person to ransomware. But everything legal, because in his eyes, because he was going, well, I told you if you want to use my software, you'd pay this fee or you'll never get back into your computer.
Wow, that's nuts.
Shit,
did they bring in some sort of law to protect consumers then, saying like something about even if they don't read the terms and conditions is not legally binding? And
but who has the money or the wherewithal to enforce any of that stuff?
Yeah, true.
Like I'm in a row with a bank at the moment, right? And I'm putting 2 subject access requests after subject access request, right? They send me back bits and pieces of everything else like that. 1 out of every 100 cases are probably really dealt with by the Data Protection Commissioner, because are the budgets there or not? When you have the likes of Facebook just laughing at these fines being given, and some of them are huge, substantial fines or whatever, around exchanging information from Europe into the States and all that kind of stuff, and they just go, we don't care.
Pay the fines.
What are you going to do?
It's cost of business.
Yeah, that's it. Like, end of story. And the only things like prohibition orders and stopping them processing the data, the only things that'll get their attention. Then they go, no, hang on a second now. We're so big. All these jobs will have to go. Oh, look, loads of redundancies. all that kind of stuff. So it's
Yeah.
it's tactics, isn't it?
It is tactics. It's genius, and you have to admire the genius of it, but also we have a responsibility, as you said. I like the way you painted that as well. Every little bit that we do is a little bit more thwarting the evil, the cyber evil. I know you're a bit pinched for time now today, so what I'll ask you to do before we wrap up here, so for us as individuals, the bit that we can do, you mentioned a couple of things like passwords and stuff like that. What would your kind of go-to toolkit be for our like cyber hygiene, our cyber data as individuals who are not necessarily massively tech savvy, but we're using all these different bits and bobs? What's your go-to? What should we be doing?
Okay, so recently I wrote actually a course for SMEs in Ireland. So if they want to know more about protecting businesses, they can go to cybersme.ie.
I'm all over that.
Right, cool. So that's a short course I put based on EU strategy and guidance, because all the practical things beyond just awareness training for businesses, but actually here's how you can become like a kind of mini cybersecurity consultant for your own business and protect your own business. Brilliant. Right? So all that stuff's in there, right? For the individuals and the basic kind of things, you want to have look. Passwords are like your underwear, right? You want to change them often, right? You want to make them exotic and don't let anybody else see them, right? So that's your password rule, right? You use two-factor authentication on pretty much everything.
Okay.
Make sure you've got backups of data. Make sure you're doing the updates, right? Trust but verify when you're dealing with people online and businesses you're dealing with online, because they're so good at these fake sites and everything else like that. And be ready for things to go wrong. That's a golden rule. Be ready for things to go wrong. So if things went wrong tomorrow, where's your data? Right? Don't tell me it's backed up in the cloud, because if they've infected your systems here, they're also infected up in the cloud.
So you're talking about hard backups,
hard backups, old school stuff, taking external drives out and keep them in a safe and all that kind of stuff, or having other ways of doing that, right? So you've got copies of your data, right? Stand back and risk assess your business, right? What are the most important digital assets your business is using? Is it just the data on a laptop? Is it the laptop? No, because that's easily replaceable. What's the data? Where's the system? How do you deal with that? Just break it down a little bit, right? And when you get into what we call the business value chain, what are the key pieces that make up your business that you'd struggle to replace if there was an incident? You go, shit, I couldn't deal with that, right? They're the things you want to prioritize and start taking care of first.
Okay.
Right? And work your way through those things. The basics are really straightforward and simple. Right? Just follow the protocols, follow the hygiene. If you're doing that, you're stopping most things. Then you can invest more into your time into cybersecurity. But the key piece, if there's one weapon people need, it's knowledge. Right? There's such a shortage of people in the cybersecurity industry that it's ridiculously expensive to hire people and get people to engage them. And most people end up going to IT people for smaller businesses and stuff like that. And they'll go and they'll say, oh yeah, sure, Jimmy puts in the printers and he makes the network work and he makes the internet work and all that. He's great. But not necessarily the person that knows anything about cybersecurity. Yeah. You need, the right level of expertise there, or be able to ask the right questions. So if you can get knowledge yourself, then you can ask the IT people the right questions. Are all our systems patched? Do we have vulnerabilities on our website? Do we have trusted plugins that we're using up on our WordPress website? Those kind of things. The basic things that could take you down. Like, what would kill you tomorrow? Would it be your website being defaced? Would it be all your data gone? Like, what would it be? Yeah. And it's different for every business because we're all unique and different kind of culture. And there's two things when it comes to risk. There's your qualitative risk and there's your quantitative risk. So your quantitative risk is going to be with the cost. How much business will I lose? How much will it cost to repair? Yada, yada, yada. Euro symbols on all of that, right? And you can define that out. Then there's a qualitative risk, right? That's your reputation, right? Can you get it back? Or whatever you go, oh, he's the poster child now for people having an upcoming business getting hacked or whatever it is, right, and getting destroyed, or somebody alludes to something or takes something out of context that they find on a system and they go, why was that on his machine? Blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. They're the things that need to be protection. I've dealt recently with quite a few like high-profile people who have their influencers and all of a sudden they're locked out of their Instagram account or they're locked out of
Which
Facebook.
is their business.
It's their business model. And you go, well, tell me now.
Did you have
this? Did you have that? No, don't have anything. No plans, nothing in place. Just making 1,500 quid every time I post, but I never thought to invest anything into, no time, no knowledge, no money into securing any of this digital business that was bringing me in millions per year. Like,
holy shit.
It's mad, isn't it? Like, it's a real business, like, at the end of the day.
It's mad, but I do understand that people who don't, like, after listening to you, obviously, hopefully a lot of people will have a lot more idea of the weight behind this. But otherwise, like I said at the very start, this is something that's in a far off land and you get an email from a Nigerian prince and you laugh and you're like, they'll never get me. But it's not that.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like it'll never happen to me until it happens to
Until
you.
it happens to
And then
you.
when it happens, you go, oh my God, yeah, I remember hearing this. And I don't know how we get around that from a human perspective. I do think there's more of that attitude in Ireland than in other countries. For whatever reason, we just have that it'll be grand attitude.
Yeah,
Like, sure, won't worry about it, it'll happen. It's like, sure, nothing will happen to you. Like, there is a lot of that goes on. I've gone into plenty of people in briefings and stuff like that, and you warn them, you tell them, and 3 months later, you're getting a call from them, and they will pay and do anything to get you in because now they're in the shit.
yeah,
And prevention is better than cure and a lot less expensive.
yeah.
It's about being prepared, not scared, right? And it's about having the basics in place, relative and proportionate to your risk in your business. You can't all go out and spend £1 million in cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Right. But you can spend 500 quid in a training course, like,
Yeah.
and understand what risks you have and manage those risks, like, that kind of stuff. So there is those kind of pieces like that can be done. But if we all take a responsibility, it does make things safer for all of us to deal with. If your listeners, any of them are interested in cybersecurity careers, they should definitely look at things like the EU Cyber Academy, look at ICT SkillNet. There's a raft of courses that blend over into areas like AI and blockchain and cryptocurrencies and all that kind of stuff as well, but are all related as well to cybersecurity. It's a fascinating, brilliant time to be on a path in your career because you can accelerate. Great thing about where we are now with the industry, it's a meritocracy. It's based on your merits.
Okay.
Can you do the job? You'll get paid the money. I don't care what you look. Do you have a mohawk? Do you have a tattoo on your face? That's fine. You're on 500 grand a year because you can do the job.
Yeah.
Right? Gone is all of this bullshit that you've been working your way up for 20 years or 30 years and you get this promotion, that promotion, whatever. Can you do the job? Great. Prove it. Where's the certs? Where's whatever? And get it. And it's also moved away from academic qualifications where somebody would have to go in and do their 4 years in a university and all of that. I don't hire people with degrees. Right?
Because people can do the job.
Can you do the job?
Yeah.
Like, do you have the aptitude? Do you have the attitude? Right? Because that's what people want.
Yeah.
Right? And you might be staring at the floor half the time because you don't have communication skills or whatever it is. That's fine because for that particular job, maybe I don't need a communicator. I need someone that is great on the screen or following things down or whatever it happens to be. So there's opportunities there for all kinds within the industry. One of the great things we are as a nation is communicators and talkers. Like, let's be honest, right? And one of the things that's missing in the cybersecurity industry are people that can communicate and talk about a product or cybersecurity or the risk in a way that people can understand. Massive opportunities around there. There's one guy, it'd be nice to know to probably come towards, I know, coming towards the end of the talk, on it is, I remember this guy I was dealing with, and I've a couple of stories like this that actually totally true and totally anecdotal. And he was working in retail, and I was dealing with him, I was going in and down again and buying shirts and things off him or whatever, got to know him a little bit, whatever, and I was really encouraging him I said, look, you're smart, you're bright, you need to get in the cybersecurity industry, right? Hadn't heard from him in years. And he contacted me and I went for a pint with him down in Malahide and sat with him and he takes out and he says, look at this. And it was a 6-figure paycheck for 1 month.
Jesus.
Right? Because he's in sales. Right? 1 month. And he said, you put me on the right path.
Wow.
Right? And I followed through. So is he selling shirts and making 30 grand a year? Or is he making $1 million a year? Selling firewalls, right? It's the same job.
Yeah.
Do you know? So it's just applying the skill in a different way and following through those opportunities, and
understanding the way the world is going. This is
Yeah.
the way the world is going, and we'll talk about AI and stuff
Yeah,
on a
yeah.
different occasion. But
Yeah.
follow the trends.
Absolutely.
Agree or disagree.
Yeah.
The world is moving this direction. We all have phones. We all have socials. We all have e-businesses. We're all online. We all have access to AI now. So if you're not involved, you're going to be left behind.
That's it. And getting, to use a phrase that I learned from the lads in ISI, get comfortable being uncomfortable.
I love it. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Really, honestly,
Yeah.
because you can apply that to everything, right?
Yeah.
So you mightn't be comfortable going from being a barman to working in sales and cybersecurity or going in and learn how to pen test or whatever. And it'll be uncomfortable for a while, right? But it's the right path for you,
Yeah.
right? If it's the right path in your particular case. And I have loads of these stories where people have taken that decision and gone, I know if I stay in this track, that's all I'll do for the rest of my life. And there's nothing wrong with it. If that's what they want, that's great. But if they want something different, if they want to travel, if somebody wants to travel, cybersecurity is the best thing in the world because you'll get all your travel paid for all over the world.
Yeah.
Just work for an international company and they'll have you everywhere. So it's a great opportunity for somebody to have a fulfilling life, in many ways, not just from the experiences they'll have, and it's continual learning games. You're continually pushing yourself, motivating yourself. You've got to stay physically fit because it's an enduring thing, and there is that battle. If you're looking at infants being raped, you need to be fit in your head and need to be fit in your body and everything else like that, because otherwise you're going to become the victim of all of this stuff as well. So it's a tough balancing act as you go through, but highly rewarding when you know you're stopping bad things happening, you're stopping evil, and the rewards are there financially as well, for people. So I'd strongly encourage people, if they're interested in it, to follow through. As I say, things like the ICTTF, that's the International Cyber Threat Task Force, that's a not-for-profit group I set up about 10 years ago. We've 35,000 members around the world. The EU Cyber Academy we've launched recently with these specialist training pieces. Within Ireland, one of the best other sources, things like ICT SkillNet. So Technology Ireland, ICT SkillNet, great source as well. Of course, it's broader than just cyber.
Okay.
And a lot of them are completely funded as well. So,
very good.
and they
Okay,
subsidize
yeah.
courses, and they also fund courses as well. So they can dip their toe in the water and get involved in that stuff as well. But look, as you say, it's the way of the future,
Yeah. And Paul, any of your own personal resources, if people were looking for more information on you? I know you have the book there, the podcast. Would you send people in a specific direction, the website maybe?
Yeah, they could check out the teamcyber.com. Teamcyber.com is essentially my commercial front end. I'm associated with other organizations like Cyber Risk International. We do have a tool called Cyber Prism. We have ICTF.org. We have the EU cyberacademy.com. There's lots of pieces, but if they want to go straight to a profile page, learn a little bit more, they can go to paulcdwyer.com, and that'll kind of branch off onto the other pieces or whatever. Look, I'm 30 years in this area. I'm passionate. It's exciting. It's amazing. I've seen and done things around the world that nobody will ever do because of it. And I've done a lot of good, right, out of it as well. So it's kind of very, very rewarding, right? But you have to keep continually developing skills to reinvent yourself all the time.
Yeah.
I started off a shy, geeky, chubby ginger
for a second.
Right?
Don't believe it for a second.
It's the reality. It's the reality of it. And what you have to do is you have to navel gaze and spot your weaknesses and work on your weaknesses, right? And then they become your strengths. So now I'm an international public speaker all around the world, working on the banks of the Jordan, the Dead Sea, you name it, I've done it, right? And, because I spotted a weakness, I went, no, I'm going to make that my strength. I'm going to be the best fucking public speaker in the world. On this subject, and I am.
Yeah, and I'm delighted you did, because man, the knowledge there. I feel like I got a mix of Paul Dwyer and Paul C Dwyer there.
Yeah, there might be a bit more Paul Dwyer next time.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that was my next question. This was a condensed version of the conversation that we had. Would you do me the honour of coming back on again, because we've loads more to talk about?
Yeah, no, 100%, Dan. Look, this has been a pleasure. And look, anything positive like this, I'm always supportive of, and share the knowledge. It's been great to see your setup here, your team, everything else of that. It's brilliant. What you guys are doing is fantastic. So, look, absolutely, yeah, I'll be along again. We have another chat.
I appreciate it, Paul. You're an absolute gem. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you in the next one.
No bother. Thanks a minute, Dan. Cheers.
Cheers.